Annulment proof is back, but we're back with a flying monkey, Ian, the truck driver, and he outranks me because I am a dumpster diver for used tires at night. So if you're thinking you can't listen to me, maybe you could listen to Ian. Okay, so he's been bugging me a little bit because he's just chomping at the bit with all the early church fathers regarding NFP, marriage, the primary purpose of marriage, and he's like, hey, let's make a little video. I said, cool. So we're going to try not to get your eyes to glaze over with too many quotes, but we're going to pick them apart a little bit because somebody's got to do it. And my joke is, sorry to ramble, Ian, hang on. My joke is that genetic entropy has got me. So every once in a while, when you see something good, it's like it gets so maligned. Even Aquinas quotes and stuff, everyone's like, oh, that means I can run a stop sign. That's what he's really saying. Okay. So anyway, Ian, so you drive a truck, you've been thinking during your long hours, turning off the country music, and you've got some quotes you want to share about early church fathers. And you talked to me briefly earlier. You're from the land of misfit toys in Portland, and you were wild and crazy once upon a time, and you've clawed your way back.
Yeah, converted late in life. And I was a high church Anglican for about 15 years there at St. Mark's, downtown in Portland. Beautiful church. We have very Catholic service, all in English, of course. But what got me out of that and got me into that from just Bible believing and got me finally to become a Roman Catholic was reading the Fathers. So initially I got overcome by the fact that, hey, it's a sacramental faith. So I had to leave the basement Bible study and go to find a church that claimed to have apostolic succession and sacraments. And long story short, I became a Roman Catholic. But even as a Protestant, reading the Fathers, I love it. And I'd come across these statements where they're talking about how they related to the procreative act. And it was such a high standard. It was kind of mind blowing. So I made a file just of some of the quotes that I found, and nobody ever, even when I became a Roman Catholic, I didn't hear anybody talking about them until I came across you. And so I'm like, hey, I should talk to John about these quotes that I've kind of thought were interesting for all this time.
Sure. Okay. Because it's the church that exists and is kind of just buried, long forgotten. It doesn't fit with the new. You can try. Father Ripperger will try. All these people are like, Aquinas approves of transgender. All right. So we can make that work if we try really. And this is all that's going on. So I made a video about that last night. It's on my brain. Anyway, why don't we go ahead and pull up a quote first, and then we'll diagnose it a little bit. And there's only 312 quotes to go through. So we'll try to pick out, a handful. Let me push pause, and then we'll pick.
Sending this letter.
Okay, so we're back. So Ian, should we read this first? Do you want to introduce it, or what are we doing?
Yeah. So this is Saint Athenogoras of Athens. This is later 2nd century, but so we're talking 1800 years ago plus 1850. He's writing this as an open letter to everyone that can read it, but it's addressed to Marcus Aurelius, the emperor, and his son. And that's no laughing matter. They'll kill you back then for being a Christian, right? And he's saying this is why you should convert and you should quit persecuting us. So that's the context of the letter here.
Okay. Thus, each of us reckoning his wife, whom he has married according to the laws which we have laid down, and that only for the purpose of procreation. Like a farmer who throws seed into the ground and then waits for the harvest, not sowing more on it, so it is to us that the procreation of children is the measure of our indulgence and appetite. Okay, pretty straightforward, and I think I used that in one of my talks about during pregnancy, but it's just giving us straight up common sense that is once you start. Again, once NFP enters the room and we need a new repository legally for our acts which are not pursuing procreation, all this is gone. And this is why I'm digressing a little bit, but I've noticed, maybe you have too, when you read about all these smarty pants marriage people that give long talks, academic talks, they all speak of, well, this was his view and his view morphed 800 years later into so-and-so's view, and that view became the new norm. And in other words, this marriage is, it's the underlying premise is everything moves, it's acceptable, it's academic. So these guys believe this because that's all they knew, but we
Yeah.
know so much more now, and it's all cool, right?
Yeah,
Right.
because the the early Christians were, I think they all were knuckle walkers with buck teeth, and they just grunted and pointed, and none of them had indoor plumbing. No, the fact is, in my opinion, and I think it's true, is that these are our intellectual betters, and not just blue collar guys like us, but they're better than the intelligent people we have today, the educated people. I think our knowledge has gone downhill, not uphill, and that these guys are the pure source, in my opinion. But
Well,
I know hear what you're saying. Everyone tries to take them and make them say what they want them to say, and I think we just need to be careful not to
yeah,
fall
so
into that.
so no guy is a pure source except Jesus, of course, but I know what you're
Of
saying.
course,
And
yeah,
I
pure.
I wonder about that genetic entropy. Yeah, and I think
Yeah,
Michael Knowles has said, and others, we're not smart. Rippiger, we're not smarter today. We just have more ways to process info and more of it.
yep,
But like Rippiger said, back in the day, Adam and Eve, they knew like a lot of stuff. And you think about
yeah,
ancient cultures, the pyramids, and those were power supplies. There's all sorts of things they were doing high end stuff 3,000 years ago.
yeah. And so this guy here, he's a trained philosopher that was famous in his own field. So he was a high level pagan religious, essentially, is what the philosophers were. He's converted, and here he's saying, we reckon wife whom we have married according to the laws that we have laid down. So that right there strikes me that he's following the church law. So he's proclaiming to this emperor that we're not following your laws, we're following the laws laid down by us. So I think that's one thing to look at in these quotes. And then he says, and that only for the purpose of procreation. And like I said, that's pretty straightforward. He doesn't go into a lot of detail, but it's what I hear you talking about a lot, which is, you use that term, the primary purpose. And
Right.
he's saying that's the only purpose, is what he's saying.
Well, when you say primary and only are the same thing. For I just, you have to distinguish between the meaning of marriage, the description of marriage, and the symbolism of marriage, and the institution of, as in the restricted sense. So legally, naturally, it's for procreation alone. Okay, but
Yeah. And that's what he says, only for the
yeah,
purpose of procreation.
okay, yeah. So what we've done, here's what's up now is we have used the restricted sense of marriage in the new code of canon law, and it replaced it with the expanded infinite definition. So we have to add good of the spouses in here, which becomes the bedrock, the personalistic norm. So they take the Council of Trent and use those words and call that the restricted sense. So the general broad sense has now become the restricted sense, if I'm making myself clear, so that procreation, in other words, we've taken the roof off the house, and now your property line is to the outer space. So marriage is bound, no more boundaries, and it's whatever you want, which is why we have some trans and a bunch of other things. Anyway, we'll wrap this up and get to the next one. You were saying he was speaking. Give us a little history again. He was speaking to the emperor about this.
Yeah, I think it was meant as like an open letter. Like today we maybe do a Twitter post to, Donald Trump. He may never read it, right? But we want everyone to read it.
Yeah.
And that's what this was. This letter was circulated, whether or not the emperor ever saw it, but it was addressed to them.
Okay.
And I think the second half of this, there's something that kind of stuck with me on this one. So it's very poetic. The farmer, he throws a seed into the ground and then waits for the harvest, right? You're not going to sow your field and then go out, and when it's just sprouting, you're going to plow it all up again and sow it again, right? You're going to wait till the harvest, not sowing more in it. And he says to us that procreation of children is the measure of our appetite in indulgence. So there's a direct correlation between how many children a man has. You can tell how self-indulgent he is. So your self-indulgent isn't measured by how well you can avoid the fertile period. Your self-indulgence is measured by how many children you have. So in a way, it's not just, it's like the total opposite. You wouldn't call it NFP, not for procreation. It's OFP, only for procreation.
I never thought of that.
Yeah, only for procreation. So he's saying the guy's got 16 kids. Boy, he's got quite the appetite, right? He's got quite the appetite. Another guy's only got 2 kids. You can just assume, well, okay, he's very chaste.
I never thought of that. Never thought of that.
Yeah,
wow.
that sounds like what he's saying to me.
Well,
and so when I read that, I was like, wow, that's high standard.
Okay, that's the offshoot of what he's saying. But what he's saying, this is the measure of our indulgence, meaning if you are to measure you have to check your indulgence toward procreation only. So therefore, during pregnancy is out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he's clear about that.
Yeah. But it's during pregnancy is not a violation of natural law. It's just that it doesn't make sense. It's not a good idea. And I think you could even say that it's a venial sin, you know,
he doesn't say, oh,
I know he doesn't go there. He doesn't go there, but
yeah, this is like the ideal that he's holding up, that this is the ideal that when you look at Christians, this is how you should understand our behavior. It's a lot of I think he's saying.
Many saints basically say, you know, for the spiritual man, you need to you treat your wife like a sister when she's pregnant. So it's not it's what ought to happen. It's the higher standard, but it isn't black and white like contraception or abortion or any family planning for that matter. That's black and white stuff. But the church allows all sorts of ways for remedy of concupiscence. If that's really what's going on, that's a big deal. Fine. It can be venially sinful. All right. If that's what you're doing it for, but it's not a violation of nature. It's a violation of purpose, of heart. Okay. So why don't we push pause and go to the next one? All right.
Sounds good.
Ian, you're like a tour guide, man. You like working at a what do you call it? A museum. So give us a little update or a intro to St. Clement of Alexandria on this.
Okay. St. Clement, he was the master of a very famous catechetical school in Alexandria, Egypt. Super smart guy, very educated. He wasn't a martyr, but he did get tortured for the faith, never buckled. He was a priest. So you can think about when we're reading this is going to confession to Clement of Alexandria here and doing your confessions to him. Think how he might look at it. Yeah, pretty smart guy.
Okay. All right. So
and this letter, this is from his book, The Stromata. So it's written as an instructional on many subjects for Christians. So this one is addressed to us.
So you would call it today, you'd call that the what do you call it? The moral manuals. That's what people call them today.
Yeah. All very much so.
195 AD. Wherefore the spiritual, here's what we were just talking about. Wherefore the spiritual man circumscribes his desires in reference both to possession and to enjoyment, not exceeding the limit of necessity, to such a one his wife after conception is as a sister. Yeah, and is judged as if the same father. So this, what I like in the beginning, he's saying, look, you can buy 3 Corvettes. That's not a guaranteed mortal sin. That's not objectively sinful. Okay, to buy 3 brand new Corvettes on a credit card, right? But you're probably blowing through prudence at that point. So you see what I'm saying? It's the same kind of thing. It's like, no. You got to limit. So that word circumscribe is big. That's in Catholic community. People don't know it. They don't even want to think about it. You are not allowed to circumscribe the primary purpose in any way, and that's all that. When you hear the word plan, so you can you can sub the word circumscribe instead.
Yeah.
Naturally,
Yeah, and
natural family circumscription.
yeah, and
Circumscribing.
he's really, I think, again, setting a high bar. We don't exceed, for our possession and enjoyment, we do not exceed the limit of necessity. So again, necessity is, and then his example is, after conception, the wife is judged as being by the same father, and that's a high standard. And so what's necessary is procreation. Now, my wife was looking over with me these quotes, before this, and she was going, well, it sounds like the marital act, they were not visualizing it going on a whole lot, right? Because
No, I think the answer is they may. You're right. Maybe in some ways correct, but I made this point before because people like to when the NFP people are like, oh look, it's really good self-control and denying yourself. But look, hey, you're just denying yourself the wrong way. All right. You want self-denial? Just go back to the way they used to do that. Nothing during pregnancy, during nursing. That's it, man.
There you
Chill
go.
out.
And then you can, you do it for spiritual reasons, right? But yeah, what you're saying, I think your point that you make that really resonates with me as being similar to what these saints are saying is he's saying not to exceed the limit of necessity. And they all agree. We could find several quotes from Clement saying that procreation is the only purpose for the marital act. He's clear about that. So when he's saying the exceeding the limit of necessity, and then so pregnancy's out, he's being super clear. If you that's when you have the marital act is during the fertile period.
Or during when procreation is, perhaps, and you don't. In other words, during the fertile period could be any time of the month. You don't need to know when.
Right. But I would say that they would recommend, and with some of the statements they're making, it sounds like they're saying, dwell with her according to knowledge.
Right, but no one knew NFP back then, and still, it's dumb.
Well, I'm going to have to disagree with you on that one. I think that the early, the first 500 years after Christ and 500 years before him and ancient history, we don't know how well they knew how to track the fertile period. I mean, they might have been really good at it.
Okay.
Back then.
Let me restate what I'm saying. Augustine, a lot of these guys knew kind of when fertility was and when fertility wasn't. It wasn't, I don't believe it was exact knowledge like as good as we have today, but they kind of generally knew. But the point is that the NFP people will always say the church doesn't teach that you have to maximize the number of kids, which is technically a true statement.
Yeah.
Okay. But nor can you avoid them. And I forgot what I was going to say. We were talking about, what were we talking about?
Well, I was just arguing with you that I think that 500, 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, they may have actually been just as good.
You don't. The NFP. Sorry, I now remember. Sorry, I'm sorry.
They may have been just as good at us.
They'll say, no, you don't have to try to find out when she's fertile. You don't. And I agree. You don't have.
No.
You don't. No. So they're making all these extreme weird things to say, no, this is what you mean. Now they use the word necessity, and like I said, St. Francis de Sales and others and Aquinas will say, look, if you've got a real problem with concupiscence, like serious, that would fall under necessity. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So like I said, if you want to do something beyond your desire for possession or enjoyment, and it's got to happen, I mean, so be it. But like I said, the spiritual man needs to mellow out and get the perspective.
Yep.
Okay, so let's go to the next one.
Okay.
So Lactantius, Christian apologist and author. So he wasn't a saint. So we don't. So
nope.
Okay, but he's better than you and me. So we might as well listen, huh?
Yeah. He was a rhetorician, which is like what Augustine was, and Tertullian, a bunch of these guys, and they were kind of like lawyers, almost very educated. And during the Diocletian persecution, he went into hiding because he quit his job and just hid out because a lot of people were getting killed. But then when Constantine converted, Constantine became a Christian, and he sought Lactantius out to educate his son in education in general, but he wanted somebody who was a master of Christianity to teach him the fundamentals. And this book that he were quoting from here, the Divine Institutes, is kind of his compendium of Christian thought. So this is a pretty famous work that's been influential throughout Christianity. And just the fact that the emperor would pick this guy as a tutor shows that he was pretty high caliber.
Okay. There would be no adulteries, no debaucheries, and prostitution of women if it were known to all that whoever is sought beyond the desire of procreation is condemned by God.
So this is the strongest statement we've had so far. The other guys we were saying, hey, maybe they're holding up an ideal here, and I think they were, but he's saying it's condemned. There would be no that's a little stronger.
If it were known to all, okay, so everyone would behave themselves if whatever is sought beyond desire is condemned by God. So
if they knew that, if everybody knew that,
okay, yeah. Because even if it's venial sin, you know that there's you don't want, obviously, that you're offending the infinite God. So look, that is pretty strong, but he's coming right out. So you got to be strong on this stuff, and you have to nail it down, because I always say, if you say, well, speed limit is be safe, or people are going to, hey, I know what safe is. Safe to me is 150 and whatever. By the way,
you got the right car.
Have you ever, did I ask you this? Have you've been brake checked, right, with your truck?
Yeah.
Why does anyone do that?
I don't know. Yeah, boy, you're the one place you don't want to be in a car wreck, in a pileup on the freeway. The place you don't want to be is in front of that semi, because you're going to get smashed. I always follow behind semis when I'm in my car, because it's like having a big linebacker running clearance for you.
Sure. Oh yeah. Now they brake checked you and you bumped into them. Is that what happened?
No. I've never done that. I've seen the videos, and I've had people just do stupid stuff. I had a guy pull out on the freeway, pull up next to somebody else that was stopped, to yell at him and just slam his brakes on in front of me. I almost sent him down the road.
Well, you probably have a lot of stories if you've been on you got 1 million miles under your belt or something.
Oh no, I've only been a trucker for about 1.5 years. Second career for me.
Oh, okay. Well,
yeah, but it's been fun.
I'll bet. As long as you can keep the old bod moving, right?
Yeah. That is the trick. And I'm working on cutting my hours back right now.
Okay. All right, cool.
Yeah, I've been working way too much.
Time's your big thing. I hear that people will try to retire early. It's like the earliest you can do it, even if you think you're not going to make it, you only got so much time. And
well, I'm looking to be semi-retired, if you don't mind the pun.
Okay.
And just truck 3 or 4 days a week. Do it locally.
Yeah, that's sure. Fine. Okay, so I guess I'm sort of retired. I just get tires at night, and I'm kind of home all day, and generally, and it works. I get some exercise, and now then, so he's basically saying, look, everyone would snap up, behave right if they knew that God condemns what they're doing. That's all he's saying. It's like if everyone knew something. But I now I come back to what I was saying. Unless something, like I said, the speed limit 25, if it says speed limit, be safe, then or just follow. This is why this whole discernment thing. I talk about the parallel with, the serpent went to Eve and said, "Why don't you discern what to do in the garden?" Did he really tell you can't do that? Why don't you think about it? Okay, let's pray about this together, right? So this guy is saying, look, man, there's that word, the P word, procreation. There's the black and white.
Yep.
Welded down.
And he's saying, if you only knew, you wouldn't be doing the freaky deaky weird stuff and getting beyond what the purpose is. You wouldn't be messing around with that if you knew that God condemned it.
So if you took this to your average RCIA class today at St. So-and-so's green or felt banner church, or
even a trad church, I'm going to say they're all going to go, well, maybe not so much, right? They're going to be like, yeah, he's pushing a little too far here.
Right. So if everything is up for debate or everything is up for taste, I like pepperoni pizza, but some people don't care for that, and that's fine, right? No one gets to change nature. No one gets to redefine marriage. But we've undergone a complete snow job in if you want to talk politics, I mean, the conjugal act is like the epicenter of politics. The epicenter, man. People get motivated one way or another right there.
It's very touchy because it's so personal.
And it's such a big deal.
Yeah.
And it's got so many strings attached that it's a huge issue, big time.
But the concept of periodic continence to avoid birth of children, so it's birth control, right? It's birth control. I'm going to use periodic continence for birth control. Well, Lactantius gives you both barrels on that one. He's saying if you're not desiring procreation, you're condemned. Right at the end there. If you're the desire of procreation, anything sought beyond the desire of procreation is condemned by God. And I think if you go, well, I'm desiring procreation, I'm just not doing it during the
no. Let
period.
me fine tune you there. He says whatever is sought is condemned. So you are condemned, not because it's that if you're seeking something beyond procreation, that thing you're seeking is condemned.
It's condemned. Yeah, good point.
So therefore it's not a ticket to hell to venially sin in this matter is the point. Okay. So, but he's clearly showing you there's only one path on this, and it's toward procreation. That's what that's all contraception. That's why it's wrong, because you're overturning the hierarchy of ends. You're doing it for other reasons. But
so you think Lactantius might hear what you just said and think, you know what, John, you're being kind of a liberal there.
No, I think I'm right on with what he's saying. No.
He's laying it down pretty hard. And, if you're not desiring procreation, then don't do it. Right. I mean, isn't that what he's saying? Whatever is sought beyond the desire of procreation is condemned by God.
Correct.
Yeah. So if you're going, I'm desiring not to procreate, but I want to enjoy it anyway, then that's condemned by God, according to Lactantius.
That's right. Yeah. It's pretty straightforward. And
that's what I'm saying. When I read these, I was just like, wow, and that's the problem with reading the early Christians is they're pretty intense about a lot of stuff, and it can be a challenge.
People have accused me of being intense now and then, and when, like you said, when there's persecution or whatever, intensity comes out, the sharp edge, because it's real serious, so they're like, no, and heck, they only, a lot of them, some of these guys live to be 70, but I think the average age were they living to be 40 back then?
I'm not sure. Some of them got pretty old. Lactantius, I can't remember how old he got, but I think lifespans were pretty good back then. For those maybe people that made it, but probably the ones more died at a young age.
I think maybe it got shorter later in history for a little bit. There was probably more I wanted to say, but I'm kind of on mental fumes because I'm fasting, and I'm doing it really for health reasons.
Nice.
I did a 5-day fast last week, just water, and
that's gotta feel good.
Then so now I'm just going to start. Now I just do like every Monday. Today's my first Monday doing it, because you know how it is. You have some bonbons and brewski on Sunday, and then you're like a bum, right?
Yep.
And then it just feeds on itself. So I'm kind of resetting the clock. Let me push pause and see what's on the phone. Okay, hold on a second. Refreshed and revived. You were telling me that one of the nice parts about driving a truck is you got a lot of time to get some info in your head.
Listen to the early church fathers audiobooks on YouTube all day long.
When you get to the truck stop, do you share some of your information with the others?
No, once in a while, but it's pretty rare. But occasionally I do.
You never know. There might be someone else like cranking the same stuff when you show up.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey,
I,
truck drivers are a very diverse group of weirdos.
I would imagine. When I'm out getting tires at night, I get a lot of prayers done, and I can listen to stuff because there's a lot to listen to, but you need time.
Yeah.
And if you're working, doing a regular, it's like, no, and especially all these like, married people with kids. No, you ain't gonna do jack. All you're picking up squished bologna sandwiches out of the car seats, and you know whatever, man. You can't think about all this stuff. You just do what everyone tells you. It's hard to research, hard to get time. Anything you're scratching for any time you can get, let alone try to get to the bottom of any of this. And that's part. I remember like when I first got introduced to NFP, my wife's like, "Oh, this is what we need to do." I'm like, "Oh, okay, go along to get along. If this is what's cool, if this is what you want, maybe we should do that." I don't know. It's like, you know what I mean? And most husbands are like, there's a bunch of that. We got to stop talking too much because we'll do that. Now, let's go to our next quote, St. Augustine. And a lot of people like him and a lot of people don't, because he sometimes girls like him too, because he's all like super love and all that. But he packs a punch. What does he got to say here? I'll read it, unless you want to set this up for us.
Okay, well, both the two quotes we're going to do are against the Manichaeans, and I just want to remind everybody that he was a Manichaean. This is what he converted from to become a Catholic, so he knows it. And in the second one, he'll be saying to a Manichaean bishop, "You told us this." So don't get confused by that. Because he's saying, "I was a heretic. You taught me this, and so now I can refute it." But anyway, just keep that in mind. He's talking to man.
That's good to know. So he
left.
It's like an ex-Mormon coming back and saying, "Hey, y'all."
Yeah, pretty.
I know exactly what you're about. Yeah. Undoubtedly, by the eternal law, which requires the preservation of the natural order and forbids the transgression of it, conjugal intercourse should take place only for the procreation of children after the celebration of the marriage, so as to maintain the bond of peace. Whoa, that last line will get you going.
Pretty straightforward.
To maintain the bond of peace.
To maintain the bond of peace, we have to be only after a legitimate marriage and only for procreation, is what I'm taking away from what he's saying.
Tell me more about the bond of peace. What is that?
I don't know. I don't know what all he means by that, but it seems to me that he's saying to maintain the bond of peace, you have to only do it for procreation and only when you're legitimately. That's kind of what I'm getting.
All right. It sounds to me like bond of peace is like if you want your marriage to sort of work out.
Yeah.
So this is kind of what I've been saying. Look, and you see it in Casti Connubii and all that. Don't reinvent marriage. Don't try to perfect it by pursuing all the love languages and to the maxing out the secondary ends. And they Casti and even Midwives in 1951, Pius XII says, look, it's not all about trying to make your marriage, tweak it so it get the relationship perfect. If you get the nuts and bolts in the right place, stuff flows well. So he's look, maintain the bond of peace. It's for procreation. And that's kind of, I've been saying the same thing. If he goes to work, she stays home and has as many kids as going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And it's done for that reason. And there ain't no family planning in the room ever. Stuff's going to work out like everyone stayed married before, together. And then all of a sudden, once you start improving things, it's kind of like once you invent diet food, everyone gets fat.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So same deal.
And the numbers don't lie. I mean, when the birth control got popular, the divorces went up, right? I mean, it's just a fact of history.
Of course. Once you take away the boundaries, like it says in Arcanum, the boundaries for divorce, once you get rid of them, it's the fire leaps out of the fireplace. Once you start look at what it says here. Eternal law, preservation of natural order forbids transgression. Okay, so once you take the eternal law and the natural order, and you tweak it or cut a hole in the back door, or add some ventilation, and it's gonna all spread, and then you get the divorce, and then now you get crazy transgender stuff because
let me ask you a rhetorical question, John. When is it permissible to alter an eternal law? Right? Never, obviously.
when it's not eternal. So that's all we have to do is change the status.
Yeah, but we're not going to fool God, and we're going to reap the whirlwind because of it.
Right, but there's so much brainwashing, politics. Like I said, the typical married couple who tries to get information, you can't get this very easily, and it's all overshadowed by the status quo everywhere. So in a way, people are sort of blameless unless they follow their conscience, and their conscience that talks to them. It's like, and a lot of people will say, I feel really weird doing this NFP, but I'm told it's the thing, and everything's, like,
oh, you're fine, don't worry about it. Well, it's the same thing with Protestants and divorce and remarriage. Like, they're told it's fine, but then a lot of times you'll talk to them about it, and they just don't feel right about it. They've been talked into it. Now they're kind of, in a situation, and it doesn't seem right to them.
I was talking to my Muslim buddy last night, and he was like, 70% of in his country where they're all Muslim, they only have one wife, but polygamy is all over the place, but they don't feel right about it. Polygamy seems weird to most of them, I guess, but because they're still living in the Old Testament. That's why they do that, I think. All right, we got to get back to this. Undoubtedly by eternal law, which requires the preservation of natural order. Now, that's another thing. When we say natural order, what the natural order is procreation primary.
Yep.
However, now that's not true. Like, there's I can't remember who it was. There's some of these NFP apologists and new marriage apologists. They'll call it right. Oh, I know who it was. It was Layla Miller's friend. Oh, I'm trying to remember her name.
Yeah, I saw that one.
She has a book called Rightly Ordered. Okay. So the new order, baby, is the personalistic norm is number one. Procreation is the product of our love. Don't you know? Okay. That's the personalistic norm. That's the expanded definition of marriage from the Council of Trent. We're going to take what is the expanded definition, and we're going to call it our institutional finite definition. So, that natural order, that's how they get around all this stuff. That's like saying, oh, all these marriage laws, they only apply to valid marriages, but I don't think our marriage is valid. So I can throw everything out the door and do it. So all this natural order stuff, guess what? Love wins. That's the order. Where have you been, Ian? You've been riding your truck too long. Why don't you roll the windows down, bro?
Yeah, I listened to City of God one too many times. Screwed me up. Well, now you know why they were burning these guys at the stake. It's you're starting messing around with people's morals, and they want you.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Okay. So the contemporary example is Charlie Kirk. If you start getting loud about trans in an effective way or something, there's something special about those trans people. They don't kind of like live and let live, apparently. So not that anyway, conjugal intercourse should take place only for the procreation of children after the celebration of marriage. So that's really good, man. He's like, look, good marriage, procreation number one, no family planning. Hello. So you don't need to be super smart. You don't have to go to counseling. You don't have to get all complicated with all these dynamics. There's some basics in place. Look,
this sentence right here is like a 300-page book on marriage condensed down into one sentence.
Thank you. I
right here.
Say the same kind of stuff. There's so much that's just going to fall right into place. Don't reinvent God's wheel. Don't do it.
So I think the next slide we've got here on Augustine, he's a bishop. Now imagine that I'm doing NFP and I go to Augustine for confession on this next slide and see what he'd tell me.
All right, let me push pause and we'll find it. Okay. Showtime. We found it. So Ian, your hunch is correct, and you're keeping me back from my worst instincts of making the video go 3 hours because there's so much to talk about. But we're going to shut it down after this. But you go ahead and set up this quote from St. Augustine for us.
Okay, so he's arguing this is purported to be a live debate that went on in Carthage, the end of the 4th century, where Augustine publicly debated the Manichaean bishop and roasted him. And so Augustine was a Manichaean. So he's going to say, it is not you who used to counsel us. So he's speaking, he used to be one of their faithful. So he's telling them, hey, you told me this, so I know. And to me, this is the most explicit condemnation of NFP and periodic continence that I've been able to find in the first 4 centuries. It's explicit, and I just don't see that there's any way around it.
I like to call it periodic incontinence too, because there's so much wordsmithing and euphemisms. But I hear, okay, so let's read
it. I think St. Augustine would agree with you.
Because everyone does periodic. It's like periodic toothbrushing. Everyone does it. Okay, you know what I mean? It's like, is it not you who used to counsel us to observe as much as possible the time when a woman after her purification is most likely to conceive and to abstain from cohabitation at that time?
So let's pause right there. So this is what I'm saying. So he's saying he's confronting this bishop publicly and saying, you told us that after the woman had her period, there's a fertile window. So we're going to avoid the fertile window. So after the period and before the period, but not during the fertile window. And you counseled us to do that. That's right. What I'm seeing there. Am I wrong?
Right. He's saying, look, you told us that this is how NFP works, primitive NFP, back in 383, even before 388 AD.
Yeah, and it was a religious tenet taught by the Manichaeans.
Oh, so we can say NFP is Manichaean.
Yeah. Well, the Manichaeans practiced it. That's what Augustine's saying. And he would know, he was in that group. So he's saying, you told me to do this.
I've coined a new phrase for the NFP heresy. I call it the Unitarians, because unity is number one, and unity is this fuzzy word which means kind of fill in the blank, whatever it is you want.
Love is in the air.
Yes, love is in the air. So I call it the Unitarian heresy, which is the reversal of the order. And okay. So anyway, this proves that you approve of having a wife, not for the procreation of children, but for the gratification of passion. Yeah, it does. In marriage, as the marriage law declared law. Oh, that sounds legalistic. Isn't Jesus above law? Isn't it about love? Wait, the man and woman. Oh, by the way, that reminds me. So marriage is an institution of nature. Okay. Those two words are matter. Institution means definition, finite. Institute. Okay. The institution of something isn't infinite. It's all over. It's one thing. Okay. And the institution of nature is not an institution of human nature only. It's all nature, as in this is how the species reproduces. Okay. And so that's why Thomas Aquinas says this is why NFP is below the beasts, because all nature is basic reproduction. And when you're using the reproductive faculty to not reproduce, the saints will say you're below the beasts. Now, this proves in marriage, as the marriage law declares, the man and woman come together for the procreation of children. Okay. In marriage, as the marriage law declares, and the marriage law declares that because it's divine, it's natural, it's eternal, it's the institution.
Yep.
So when you start making unity the law, you have thrown the law out the window, because unity has no definition.
Yeah. So, and his gotcha here, he's publicly trying to discredit Manichaeanism in the face of mostly Catholic Carthage and he's the head bishop, and he's saying this proves that you approve of having a wife not for the procreation of children, but for the gratification of passion. So the fact that they're avoiding the fertile period proves that it's for the gratification of passion, which he's clearly, and all these quotes clearly are condemning that.
I think there was another quote, but we can go on some other day about it, where I think it was St. Augustine. He's like, you turn your wife to a prostitute.
Yep.
The husband becomes a paramour, and father-in-law becomes a pimp.
Yep.
It's like, look, we have to get back to nature and law. And as I was saying, that once you redefine what the law is, if you make the law indefinite or infinite, then none of this makes any sense, and love wins. That's all love wins means. I think this was really good. I don't know what else people can argue about, but as I always like to say, anyone's got something to say. You think Ian needs to switch gears and stop this stuff, and he's all wrong and I'm all wrong. No problem. Even if I'm a little bit wrong, just comment your heart out about it, and maybe we'll do some other video, because I think there's only I don't know, 120 more quotes to go.
Well, I think we could have a lot of fun talking also about the same time period, divorce, remarriage, and the exception clause.
Oh yeah,
I got a bunch of them on that one.
Juicy. Holy cow! Yep. That exception clause is a killer, and that's another one that's buried under it's under several slabs of foundation at the Vatican.
Yeah,
all
and
the
I got a ton of material on that, but there's the one reason that this quote really, to me, is the icing on the cake, is what I found so disturbing since I found your material and I started to scratch around on what people are saying in, let's say, people that are Latin Mass only traditional types, right? We're holding to the pre-Vatican II. We're not moving an inch crowd, okay? Is this whole idea that I just blows my mind that the early Christians didn't understand the fertile period, and that the issue is only 150 years old. So because it's only 150 years old, and these knuckle walking idiots like St. Augustine and Jerome and all these other, morons back in the Stone Age didn't understand, so we can throw out everything they said and just ignore it because it's a new issue. It's only 150 years old.
Point. It's the same thing with Protestantism.
Yep.
Let's talk about what Second Romans da says. Okay, hello. Where did you get your Bible? How old is Protestantism? Oh no, we didn't have it back. No, see. So we're just erasing the past history.
Yeah, and in this quote, St. Augustine is clear. He's accusing him of doing exactly what periodic continence, NFP, whatever, the rhythm method. It's the rhythm method. He's saying you taught us the rhythm method. There's a fertile window, and you taught us to avoid that around the period, around the purification, that's the menstrual cycle. So he's saying you use the times around the fertile period, not during the menstrual cycle, is what I'm getting out of that. So
I see.
Understood. He understood. They understood the fertile window and the concept of avoiding it, and they're condemning it. So this isn't an issue that's 150 years old. It's a eternal issue.
Excellent point. Now I'm catching on, because there's more he writes on this. All the penalties and the sin and all. We're not going there yet.
Yeah, these are just good little sound bites, but don't let anybody tell you that this issue is only 150 years old. That's revisionist. And I'm not saying the people saying that they've been taught it by somebody else. They maybe never stopped to think about it, but it's just not true. The church has always understood this, and they've always condemned it.
I think the same thing. It's like, oh, this is a new thing. That's why the church had to come up with something about it. No,
Then that's the typical liberal argument. Oh, nobody understood it. Now we're so smart because of science and scholarship. We've moved so far ahead, and we're opening these new horizons. And guess what? It's the new springtime. No, it's the same old game.
I think if you and I got some alcohol and cigars and made the stream another 4 hours, we'd come across some more tidbits, but it would take a lot of goofing around. But there's so much in here. All right, let's wrap it up.
Ian, thanks for the idea. It was good. I'm really
Hey,
glad you got these
Thanks
slides
for having me
together.
on. It's been fun.
Sure. All right. Till next time. God
All right.
bless.
God bless you, man.